The sun rose slowly over the rugged plains of Arendor, casting golden light on the jagged rocks and sparse grass that covered the planet's surface. Human rancher Jared Klein wiped the sweat from his forehead as he surveyed his herd of grazing oxen. Life on Arendor was hard, but Jared had grown used to the challenges. The soil was tough, the weather harsh, and the predators relentless. Yet he loved the land that had become his home. As he walked along the ridge, Jared's keen eyes spotted something unusual near a shallow canyon. A figure lay crumpled on the ground, motionless. At first he thought it was a trick of the light or a shadow cast by the rocks, but as he drew closer, his heart skipped a beat. The figure was alive and badly injured. The being was humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. Its skin had a faint, iridescent glow, and its eyes were a striking shade of amber. Jared recognized it immediately from the stories he had heard from explorers. This was a LeaderThe tribe's leader, a respected figure among the native people of Arendor. But why would he be here alone and wounded? Jared's instincts told him to be cautious. The LeaderThe were known to be fierce when threatened, and other humans might see this as a chance for conflict. Yet he could not leave the leader to die. "Hold on," he muttered softly, approaching slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The LeaderThe stirred slightly, groaning in pain. Jared saw a deep gash along his side and blood soaking his tunic. He quickly gathered supplies from his pack, clean water, bandages, and herbs he had learned to use for healing injuries. Kneeling beside the tribe's leader, he began to clean the wound gently, talking to him in calm tones. The leader winced but did not resist. "Why, help me?" he asked weakly in broken common, the universal human-alien language. "Because no one deserves to die alone," Jared replied simply. "You're hurt? I can help." Hours passed as Jared worked carefully, stitching the wound as best as he could, and applying herbal poultices to prevent infection. He offered the leader water and small bites of dried meat. Gradually, the LeaderThe's breathing steadied, and his eyes, once clouded with pain, regained a spark of life. Jared learned that the leader's name was Tavok, and he had been ambushed by a band of rogue hunters while scouting the plains. Tavok had been separated from his people and had no chance of survival without help. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Jared made a decision. Tavok would stay at his ranch at least until he could walk again. The night was quiet, save for the low calls of distant creatures and the crackle of a small fire Jared had made. Tavok remained silent for a long time, simply watching Jared as he prepared a simple meal of roasted vegetables and fresh water. There was no hostility in his gaze, only cautious curiosity. "You humans, not all the same," Tavok said finally. "Some care." Jared smiled faintly. "Not all LeaderThe are the same either. We can surprise each other." By morning, Tavok's strength had improved slightly, enough for him to sit upright. Jared helped him to a simple wooden chair, offering more food and clean water. The LeaderThe leader's voice was stronger now, and he spoke more fluently in common. "You risked much," Tavok said, looking out over the plains. "Other humans, they would have left me to die." "I've seen too many die because someone thought it was easier to turn away," Jared replied. "No one should be left alone if they can be helped." Over the next few days, Jared and Tavok talked more. Tavok shared stories of his tribe, the LeaderThe, who had lived on Arendor for centuries, learning to survive in its harsh environment. They were skilled hunters, farmers, and artisans, living in harmony with the land while respecting its dangers. Jared found himself fascinated by the LeaderThe way of life. "You are strong," Tavok said one evening as they watched the twin moons rise. "But you are also kind. That is rare," Jared shrugged. "I've learned that strength isn't just muscles. It's knowing when to help, when to fight, and when to stand your ground." Tavok nodded slowly. "You could teach your people much, but humans sometimes forget kindness." Word of Jared's deed began to spread among nearby LeaderThe tribes. Scouts and travelers who passed near the ranch noticed the presence of the wounded leader and spoke of a human who had saved him. Slowly, curiosity replaced suspicion. LeaderThe clans that once avoided human settlements began to watch from a distance, seeing if Jared's actions were genuine. Meanwhile, life on the ranch continued. Jared repaired fences, tended to the oxen, and managed crops, all while caring for Tavok. Despite the danger, he felt a sense of purpose he had not known before. This was more than just survival. It was building trust, a rare treasure in a world where fear often dictated behavior. One morning, a sudden commotion arose near the canyon. Jared grabbed a rifle, his heart pounding, ready for trouble. A small group of Lumari scouts emerged, not with weapons drawn but with cautious expressions. They had come to see the human who had helped their leader. Tavok, now able to stand with assistance, greeted them warmly. "These humans, not all enemies," he told them. "One, good among many." The scouts exchanged glances, their suspicion slowly melting into curiosity. Jared stepped forward, hands open to show he meant no harm. He offered water and simple bread to the visitors. The act, small as it seemed, was powerful. Trust began to grow, brick by brick. Over the following days, more Lumari visited, observing Jared's life, learning from his skills and sharing knowledge of their own. Jared marveled at their craftsmanship, their knowledge of plants, and the subtle ways they could survive in a planet that was unforgiving to the careless. But not all was peaceful. A distant rumble reminded Jared that danger was always near on Arendor. Rogue hunters, poachers, and rival human settlements often threatened both his ranch and the Lumari. Yet with Tavok's guidance and the cautious interest of the nearby clans, Jared felt a sense of hopeful alliance forming. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Tavok stood beside Jared, looking out over the horizon. "You helped me. Risked much, my people. They will not forget." Jared smiled, resting a hand on the wooden fence post. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it was right, but I'm glad your people are alive, and I'm glad you're alive too." Tavok placed a hand on Jared's shoulder, a gesture of trust and gratitude. "Tomorrow, we go back to tribe, but I must return." Jared nodded, knowing this moment would pass, yet he felt a quiet confidence. The bond formed in these days would last far longer than the pain of injuries or the threats that lingered. A bridge had been built, one of kindness, courage, and mutual respect. As night fell, Jared looked at the stars shining brightly over Arendor. Somewhere beyond the plains, the Lumari watched, their eyes reflecting the same stars. And somewhere, he knew, Tavok was preparing to honor the bond they had created. Little did Jared know that tomorrow would bring a gift, one that would not only surprise him, but also set the stage for a future where humans and Lumari could face the dangers of the frontier together. The first part of the story ends with a quiet, hopeful moment, Jared tending the fire, Tavok resting, and both knowing that compassion and courage had begun something extraordinary. The morning sun cast its warm glow over Jared Klein's ranch. The air was crisp and the oxen moved slowly across the plains. Jared was checking the fences when he heard a strange sound, distant but unmistakable. Hooves? No, something different. Voices chanting in a language he did not fully understand. He straightened and scanned the horizon. In the distance, he saw a small group approaching. But this time it was not Tavok alone. Walking with him were 5 Lumari envoys, each tall and strong, adorned in colorful, handcrafted armor, carrying gifts in woven baskets and wooden cases. Their presence was commanding yet peaceful. Jared felt a mixture of surprise and curiosity. He had expected Tavok to leave and perhaps return alone later. But this display was something else entirely. It was a gesture of respect and alliance. Tavok limped slightly but moved with pride, signaling to Jared. "These, my people, envoys, come to honor you. And your courage," he said. "We bring gifts, as promise of trust." The envoys placed their baskets on the ground, revealing exotic fruits, minerals that shimmered like sunlight, intricate tools, and carefully crafted sculptures. Jared marveled at the craftsmanship. Each item represented a story, a tradition, or a skill that had been honed over generations. "I don't know what to say," Jared admitted, stepping closer. "You shouldn't have gone through all this trouble." Tavok smiled faintly. "We do this because you helped one of us. You risked yourself. For life, that deserves respect." Over the next few hours, the envoys and Jared exchanged stories. Jared taught them simple human farming and ranching techniques, showing them how to strengthen fences, care for oxen, and use water efficiently in dry lands. In return, the envoys shared secrets of the Lumari, how to predict storms by observing the stars, how to gather food without disturbing delicate plants, and how to move silently through the plains to avoid predators. By midday, the bond between humans and Lumari had grown strong. Jared felt a rare sense of unity, a knowledge that together they could survive any challenge Arendor might throw at them. But the harmony was soon disrupted. From the ridge, a sudden cloud of dust and shouts signaled danger. Jared recognized the signs immediately. Rogue hunters, the same type that had ambushed Tavok days before, were approaching, armed and ready to take advantage of any vulnerability. Jared moved quickly. "Tavok, envoys! We need a plan now." Tavok assessed the situation calmly. Rogue hunters. Greedy humans. They want land, not peace. But together, we strong, Jared nodded. "Okay, let's use the terrain. Your knowledge, my tools. We can make this work." The group spread out strategically. Jared instructed the envoys to use small rock formations for cover, while he set up traps along the likely path of the intruders. Tavok directed his envoys with quiet signals, telling them when to move, when to hide, and where to block possible escape routes. As the hunters approached, they were surprised. Rocks fell from hidden ledges, small fires were lit along paths to create smoke, and strategically placed nets snagged horses and carts. Jared and the Lumari moved like a single unit, combining human ingenuity with Lumari skill and knowledge of the land. The confrontation was intense but brief. The rogue hunters had expected easy prey, but they were met with precise coordination, clever traps, and unexpected resistance. Within an hour, they were disarmed, surrounded, and forced to retreat, humiliated and defeated. Breathing heavily, Jared wiped sweat from his brow. "That and went better than I expected," he said, looking at the envoys. Tavok nodded, placing a hand on Jared's shoulder. "Together, we stronger, you more than just human. Courageous." The Lumari envoys smiled, impressed by Jared's quick thinking and bravery. What had begun as simple acts of kindness had grown into a display of strength and mutual respect. After the hunters fled, Jared helped the envoys repair minor injuries, and Tavok ensured the gifts they had brought remained safe. The bond between human and Lumari was no longer tentative, it was real, forged in trust, courage, and shared danger. That evening, as the sun set and the plains were bathed in gold, the group gathered around a fire. Tavok raised a simple ceremonial cup, a tradition among his people. "To new friendship, to trust, to survival together," he said. Jared raised a cup of water in return. "To unity and courage," he said. The fire crackled as they shared stories, laughed quietly, and began planning ways to further strengthen their alliance. Tavok spoke of trade routes, safe havens, and shared patrols to protect both human ranches and Lumari lands from future threats. Jared contributed ideas on sustainable farming and resource management that could benefit the tribes without harming the planet. Over the next few days, the Lumari envoys helped Jared expand the ranch, teaching him new planting techniques and ways to care for the animals more efficiently. Jared, in turn, taught them how to store food for long periods and improve shelter construction against harsh weather. Both sides learned from each other, realizing that together, they could achieve far more than alone. Tavok stayed for several more days, overseeing the improvements and ensuring the envoys were fully integrated with Jared's plans. During this time, Jared learned more about Lumari culture, their emphasis on respect for life, their connection to the land, and their ability to endure hardships without losing hope. "You humans, sometimes reckless," Tavok said one morning with a small smile. "But you, also brave and kind." "And you, Lumari," Jared replied, "sometimes too cautious, but you also wise and resilient." The mutual respect was clear. Both had much to teach, and both had learned the value of trust. By the time Tavok and his envoys prepared to leave, the ranch was transformed. Fences were stronger, fields were healthier, and the bond between human and Lumari was unbreakable. Before departing, Tavok presented Jared with a final gift, a small glowing crystal, imbued with Lumari symbolism of protection and friendship. "This and for you," Tavok said. "To remember, we stand together." Jared accepted it with gratitude. "I will, and if ever you need help, you will find it here." As Tavok and his envoys disappeared into the distance, Jared stood at the edge of the plains, looking at the horizon. The crystal in his hand seemed to shimmer with light, a symbol of what had been achieved. He knew challenges would come again. Arendor was not a forgiving planet, but he also knew that human courage and Lumari wisdom together could overcome any obstacle. That night, under a sky filled with stars, Jared reflected on the past few days. A wounded tribe's leader had arrived at his door, and through compassion he had forged a connection that might change the future of the frontier. Friendship, trust, and courage had created a bridge between two very different peoples. And that bridge, he realized, was stronger than any wall or weapon. Jared fell asleep by the fire, content and hopeful. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he no longer faced them alone. Somewhere out there, Tavok and his people were watching, ready to act together if needed. The future of Arendor looked brighter, thanks to one act of kindness that grew into a powerful alliance.